Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mike here at Gamefromscratch, and the ongoing Adobe saga continues, and it's very clear that the customers have gotten through to Adobe with their response. We will see that in just a second, but first, a very quick backstory. Basically, last week, they updated their terms of service. They technically updated them several months ago, but last week, they made people agree to the new terms of service. People checked out those new terms of service, and specifically Section 4.3 and 2.2 caused people to go, whoa, no. And more or less, they were asking for an infinite sublicense to your work. And on top of that, they were basically suggesting that they may be scanning and using your Creative Cloud content to make their tools better, which people interpreted as, okay, wait a minute, you're training your generative AI models off of our content. And they kind of responded back. It was a very weak response, basically saying, no, we don't train Firefly off that. But there was like a hole the size of a Mack truck you could drive through to basically say, okay, well, they did, perhaps. And it was just, the biggest thing about it was, the response was more or less, trust me, bro. And the thing is, nobody trusts Adobe. This is what happens when you have 15, 20 years of screwing your customers over. You don't have a lot of goodwill. So if there's a company out there that people use and love their products but hate the company, number one is probably Adobe. So the trust me, bro thing just doesn't work. You need to put these terms into the actual terms of service. You need to write it down because people just do not trust you anymore. And on top of that, and this is completely unrelated, but just to add to the fun that they had in that week, the DOJ is actually launching a suit against them over their scummy business practices, specifically what I was mentioning earlier on around subscriptions, making them very difficult to get out of, making it a little bit tricky in terms of people not knowing that there are termination fees there, and so on. So basically, some of the scummy, dark practices that they've been working on have come to the attention of the DOJ, and they are actually launching a suit over general Adobe scumminess. This is actually unrelated to everything else, but it does kind of impact a little bit about today's story. And on to today's story is more or less Adobe have addressed the fact, and they're kind of putting it as, oh, no, we used legalese, and it was a mistake. We didn't mean to overreach, and we never know their intentions. Did they actually intend to ask for the moon and then get caught doing it, or was it actually an honest legal mistake? You decide. It ultimately comes down to how much you trust Adobe. So anyways, they have updated their terms of service. They actually did, and I have to give them credit for this. They did exactly what I said they need to do. They need to clarify and put it in the terms of service what they can and cannot do. They actually went a little bit above that, and they put these summary blocks in terms of what each section is all about. So I said earlier on that the two major areas that were like causing the fire in the first place were section 2.2 and then 4.3. So 2.2 was all about how they could access your content, moderate your content, and how you had to grant them more or less a license to their content. So now they've put this plain English definition up here of saying, no one but you owns your content. We need access to your content as necessary to operate Adobe applications and services. We limit our access to very specific purposes. We review content that is on our service to screen for certain types of illegal content, such as that, or abusive content or behavior, for example, patterns of activity that indicate spam or phishing. We start this process with an automated machine-driven review, but if our automated systems or another users flag an issue, a person may review the content to confirm if it is illegal or abusive. A person may review your content on our servers in limited circumstances such as your request when you choose to let us use your content to improve our products or when your content is flagged or reported as illegal. Here's what we don't do. We don't scan or review content that is stored locally on your device. We also don't train generative AI models on your customers' content on you or your customers' content unless you've submitted the content to the Adobe Stock Marketplace. Now, I want to stop there for a second and point something out here. The Adobe Stock Marketplace is where more or less working artists license out their works so other people can, pay them to use it. It's a standard licensing agreement. It's sort of like, what Getty Images do and everything else like that. The killer thing here is Adobe are using that pool, basically the working artist whose job is licensing out art, to train the tools that ultimately will compete with them. So the fact that Adobe stock users are getting their stuff used to train AI has to just absolutely piss them off. And I get it. It's actually the exact demographic of people they're taking advantage of are the ones that are being most impacted and hurt by AI generative tools. It's just okay. The other key thing here is this one. So generative AI. We will not use your local or cloud content to train generative AI models except for content you choose to submit to Adobe Stock Marketplace, and this use is governed by a separate Adobe Stock Contributor Agreement. So that is pretty clear, pretty straightforward. So a lot of the stuff is about hosting content. Everyone that does host content online has some responsibility. You know, you can't host CP, like there's just certain things you can't host online, period. And you know, so they do have auto flagging. If people report, they need to investigate it. So some of this stuff makes total sense. It's this one that is, I think, the biggest thing that got people up in arms with the original agreements here. And there is one thing I do want to point out, other than the fact that they're screwing their Adobe Stock customers and users, which I imagine there's going to be an exodus of people submitting to Adobe Stock. But the other part here is this is all present and future tense language. We will not use your local or cloud content. Not we do not or we have not. Just we will not. So there's also still the possibility here that they've already trained off of Creative Cloud content, and they're just saying, oh, we won't do that anymore, which would be kind of weird because if the AI model is already trained, it doesn't really matter. Now, again, there's nothing to suggest that they have done that. All I'm saying is the way that this is worded, it could perfectly be that they have. And it's one of those things, again, comes down to how much you actually trust Adobe at the end of the day. So we got down here, we got, again, summaries for every category, which I like that. I like this plain legalese in here, summarizes each area and then the more details underneath it. The other area that got people a little worked up was 4.3, a license to your content. So you own your content, but in order to use our products and services, we need you to give us permission to use your content when stored or processed in our cloud. This permission is called a license. The license allows us to provide our products and services to you, like if you want to share your content or publish your content on Behance, because it's your content, not ours. The license does not grant us permission to train generative AI models with you or your customers' content. We don't train generative AI models on you or your customers' content unless you've submitted the content to Adobe Stock. Once again, Adobe Stock people getting screwed. We also asked whether you would like to help us improve our products and services, but it is never required. So your content could potentially be used that way if you have that, you know, help us with stuff. It also comes down to if you're using beta versions or special pre-release versions, they can use your content potentially there. When you choose to help us improve our products, we will need a limited license to your content for that purpose. So here it breaks down exactly what the license is. The key thing is what they don't do. We will not and cannot grant a sub-license to a third party that is greater than the rights you give us. Under the clause 4.3, we do not have the right to and will not use your content to market or promote Adobe. We will not use the contents to train generative AI models on your content, and we will not use the sub-license right to have anyone else train generative AI models on your content, except at your specific request, like you asking us to train a custom model on your content. So that's kind of the clarification. It's interesting, by the way, for content analysis, there are opt-out options, not opt-in. You're going to probably want to know that. You're going to want to go ahead and probably opt out. But yeah, that is the clarification. I do appreciate the fact that they have added clean language at the top. Is this just fire control? And honestly, if this was the license as they had it, if this was the terms of service they released last week, I don't think that there would have been an actual outcry like there has been. It's just, again, it comes down to people don't trust Adobe. And is this them doing clarifications, or is this them getting caught with their hand in the cookie jar and trying to fix things after the fact? By the way, if you want a bit of a summary from their perspective, they have this video. It is actually available right here at the top of this document. This guy right here, or technically this girl right here, she explains in simple terms, she's a legal counsel at Adobe, what it's all about. Also, if you go check out Twitter, it's hilarious, but basically every front-facing person has done a personal, here's what we meant to do kind of video, so those are all available to check out as well. But yeah, that is the updated terms of service, terms of use. Again, I do like the clarification. I do think that Adobe Stock people are getting absolutely screwed. I think there could be an exodus of people actually using Adobe Stock. I wonder if you'll be able to have your content pulled down and retroactively taken out of models, but I doubt it. And then the other thing, again, that isn't clarified is we will not we have not. So there is still that, but the clarified terms are much more reasonable. The problem is they had to get smacked in the face before they went ahead and did them. And let's also keep in mind that although this happened and this happened, them being scummy and their business practices and what happened with the DOJ, well, that's still happening. So there is a reckoning of sort going on at Adobe, and it'll be interesting to see how this ultimately turns out. So that is their new updated terms of service. I applaud them for actually doing it in plain English. Just kind of wish they did that from the start. start. Let me know what you think. Comments down below. Talk to you all later. Goodbye.